Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Longley's Line Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Longley. Remember to like, follow, subscribe on all of our social medias, wherever you can follow us. Stephen Longley for me, Longley's Line Podcast for the show, Lightstyle Studio for our beautiful studio here. And today, I have a very spooky guest with us today, Miss Holly Spar. Holly, thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure, and you brought a couple of props. I know I said we weren't going to point them out, but I wanted to because they're
immediately pointing them out.
Immediately here.
Yes. So I'm in the Halloween industry. So I build all kinds of spooky things, and I brought a couple live cast props from the studio just to, set the ambiance, the tone for the interview, make the studio pop a little bit.
Just set the vibe,
Yeah.
as one were. So before we really get kind of diving into everything, would you like to promote any social medias or anything that you'd like to, wherever people can follow you, or anything that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dark Corner Haunt on all social media platforms, darkcornerhaunt.com. We're the haunted house downtown Reno in the National Bowling Stadium. So our website's popping right now, and we got all kinds of marketing ads going out right now. So we have a couple other websites that you might see on flyers around town, but that'll get you to us. And then our Dark Corner Haunt TikTok has some really great content on it recently, so check that out.
All right, perfect. And then, so to kind of start off, where are you from originally?
Ooh, interesting question. I mean, I tell people Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I went to undergrad at Savannah College of Art and Design for fine art sculpture.
Okay.
So I was there for 5 years, and then I've lived all over. I've moved plenty of times for jobs, opportunities, new adventures. But I've been in Reno for about 5 years.
Okay.
I moved here not really thinking I was going to stay, but I was here for a second, and I kind of was thinking about the next life move, and I just kind of got into the community, started meeting people, and I was like, dang, Reno's kind of got it going on for artists. I met the coolest group of people kind of in the music and club scene here who became my friends, and then I started doing set design and decor with that crew, and then just noticed Reno's proximity to Burning Man, having, I mean, I think that's what it is, just the weirdo creatives that are around here, and it being at the time when I moved here, not as expensive as the bigger cities that are closer that you could maybe relate to having more of an artist scene. I was like, Reno's kind of got it going on, and being here, I was like, there's a lot of opportunity here. With my art style and what I'm into and what I want to do, I was like, I think Reno can handle it and accept that, and I can kind of make a name for myself and the companies that I want to create here. So I stayed, and I really have no intention of leaving, and I'm loving Reno more and more every day, and I'm getting really into hopefully utilizing my creative ability to help Reno, help the downtown district, make it come alive again. As we all know, going through COVID, the downtown thing is a little rough around the edges, but trying to create an event for the fall for families and for bringing people downtown and for fun and to get people downtown on it's on 4th Street and University. We're at the National Bowling Stadium. So throughout the end of September and weekends, mostly select days in October, we bring a huge crowd lining up to see the haunted show.
Beautiful. And then many people know the Reno Bowling Stadium, studio, whatever you want to call it, is famous for Kingpin, and Sister Act 2 also kind of made a couple of things around there. So it's
I watched Kingpin recently. I knew that I know because people had always talked about it, but it was a while after I got to working in that building that I actually watched the show. But it's really entertaining for us because when you see the scene, the main scene of them going into the bowling stadium, where they're entering the bowling stadium is the door where you enter our haunted house. You kind of, it's kind of nostalgic for us. We're we're there too.
This is awesome. Bill Murray came through here. At one point. So to start off, before you really got started and you're in college kind of thinking arts, design, things like that, did you go immediately to kind of the spooky graphic design of it, or was it kind of just flex a creative muscle?
I guess the story would be my start into the Halloween industry and making my art spooky is that during college in Atlanta, I worked for Netherworld, which is one of the top haunted houses in the US. It is extreme. It is like one of the coolest immersive environments you could ever be in. And I didn't really know how honored I was to work in a space like that, because it was like my first example of haunted houses. And I just so happened to live with a house of amazing nerds who were like, you would be great for this. Like, come do an interview. Let's get you in the haunted house. They were super into it. They really liked dressing up. We always did cosplay, just a bunch of fun nerds. And then so entering the haunted house at Netherworld, I was like, oh, wow, yeah, this is cool. So I was an actor and then eventually ended up in the makeup department as well. Helping out with hair and makeup. But as an actor in Netherworld, it was a fun little journey of starting out as a beginning actor, pretty young, like late college, but that's still like really young in the scheme of things of like figuring out who you are as a creative. So in the beginning, I can like remember the characters they put me in. I remember specifically being like a haunted shrub for a few of the nights. Like I would wear this ghillie suit. It's like those silly suits people hunt in, so it makes them look like mesh.
Where they're trees
so
and
yeah,
bushes.
the deers can't see them, I guess. But in the haunted house, like I would have this whole ghillie suit on, all fringed out. I would just like stand against a wall, and my job was just like pop out from the wall and be a scary bush. So that was funny. But the journey from like being put in those costumes to like being put in like a full face mask and being some like gargoyle or gremlin to working my way up to proving myself and getting a character that kind of owned a room in the haunted house. I ended up being a character that worked in like this library of sorts. I had a feather duster, a really like kind of like ghost character. So, and I had lines and I could improv and come up with my own lines. They would give us guidelines around like what to say or what kind of character you're supposed to be emulating for the audience for the show. But you know, just the progression of finding myself and finding who I am as a creative and how I act and how I can perform in that environment was like really something for my like creative spirit. And just that family I found there was really important to me. And I like that became my shit. Can I cuss on the podcast? Okay, that was the shit. I was like, dude, fucking haunted houses, like I'm addicted. This is my thing. So when I ended up at the time in Atlanta, I was working for a like fabrication company. I would build stages. I would build environments mostly for museums. I would work in a studio where I'd carve foam most of the day into like trees, into animals. I would go to natural history museums and install it. You know, like when you walk into a museum, there's like a fake tree and maybe like a dinosaur popping out of an egg. I would like sculpt those things and go and install them. So using my sculpture talents from school, working in the museum industry, making set design and fabrication, and then acting in the haunted house. That was like, you know, the beginning of my creative endeavors. And then I moved to the West Coast. I got into the medical field a little bit for a while. I always wanted to make facial prosthetics. It's called maxillofacial prosthetics. But I wanted to make eyes and ears for people with birth defects or accidents because I'm really artistic, but I always wanted to help people. So I ended up doing that or getting really close. I never made oculars or anything, but I made arms and legs for people. So I worked in the prosthetics field for a while. And so that taught me the human form. I had to memorize like muscular systems. I had to understand color theory to do skin tones. I had to paint artificial limbs, the color of different people's skin. And then I also worked in the dental technology field for a while. I made caps and bridges and dentures for a while. So so I learned how all of the human mouth and teeth and how that is. And sometime during that time of my life is when I named myself Monster Mouth Studios because I started using my schooling in the dental field to make custom dental prosthetics for my friends back in Georgia who were addicted to the Halloween industry as well. So I was like making custom vampire fangs and creepy veneers for people. And so yeah, that's when I named myself Monster Mouth Studio, and you can still find me that way online and on social media. That's like my personal art endeavors, but I'm definitely not too active on my Monster Mouth pages anymore because I'm dedicating myself full time to the haunted house. But yeah, all of those, just speaking about like how I got my start, all of those things I learned, all of that schooling, all of those creative fields kind of came together to give me this like really interesting concoction of all the knowledge I could possibly need to pull off a haunted house. Like I know how to fabricate big, I can paint, I can sculpt, I can make a human body look like a human body, and I can act and be creative and performative so I can help others, you know, develop themselves as creatives in the Halloween industry. So when I moved here, I knew I had to get back in a haunted house. That was just like, that's just like a part of me. It's my part of my DNA. Like, I'm spooky. So I looked for a haunted house to join. And I just realized there wasn't really any like major haunted houses. And like, maybe I gave up too soon. Like, since then I have heard of like the haunted houses that were here. I don't know why I didn't get connected to them. I don't really have a memory. Maybe I reached out and they didn't get back to me or something. But I ended up kind of giving up on it. I was like, oh, West Coast, like maybe we ain't that spooky out here. Or like, I thought maybe like because the cities aren't as old, there just isn't that like spooky deep history of like ghost stories in the town. Or low key, I was kind of like, maybe just everyone goes to Burning Man out here and they like butterflies and all rainbows and sunshine. So I was like, gave up on it for a while. But then a few years later, I had been working at Junkie for quite a few years. So I worked with Jessica Snyder, and she had always wanted to do a haunted house. I have my background in haunted houses, and then I became partners with Dustin Ring. He's not here today, but I did bring his severed head to keep us company. Spirit. Yes, Dustin's here. And he's also addicted to the Halloween industry, and he had been doing a home haunt in West Reno that was almost professional quality for, I don't know, like the last 10 years. And when I saw his production, he's in technology. His background's in like, I mean, he can do sound, lighting, he can make things move, he can make a rocking chair go back and forth. That's not me. Yes, exactly. And so with my skill set, his of fabrication, his knowledge of technology, which would be the most daunting thing for me, and it was the most daunting thing for Jessica Snyder. But she owns Junkie. So Junkie, with the 10-year reputation in Reno, just being the most eccentric, ridiculous store you could ever go to. The three of us together were like, you know what? We could do this. We could pull this off. So last year, we went down the ridiculous, stressful, beautiful journey of figuring out how to create a huge event for downtown Reno in like freaking something like 7 months we pulled it off. I mean, from scratch, almost scratch. I mean, Dustin had his home haunt equipment. I have a bunch of art supplies and then like my past ridiculous set design pieces and things. And she has deco from Junkie, as you can imagine. Loving Junkie, like that aesthetic, bringing that into the haunted house. I mean, we had a really good like footing to pull it off, but man, was it a daunting endeavor, but we freaking did it. And we kicked ass, dude. So year one last year was so much fun. And, you know, we started off running again for year two. So we are in the beginning-ish. We've been building for a while, but I would still say this is like the beginning of build season for year two. So yeah, we're at a studio in Mogul where myself and a small, very dedicated crew builds the walls and every set piece you're going to see at the show this fall.
That's awesome. Well, that's great that you kind of said you started off as an actor. And then as they say, you know, when you're going out for plays and things, it's like, I got cast for tree number 3, you know, something. You're like, that's a very small part. But then as you get started, tree number 3 is still in the background scaring people and doing stuff and being involved and actually a part of it. So it's more of your stepping stone that got you to be in a library by yourself controlling a room. And then to jump back a little bit, were there any kind of haunting inspirations that you had from like movies or anything like that that made you really want to dive into the horror aspect, or was it just kind of part of your DNA to begin with?
It really is just in my imagination. I know this sounds funny, but I have not seen that many classic horror movies that anyone wants to talk about. I'm not very good at watching TVs and movies. I'm not very connected to pop culture. So I would say the inspiration just comes from a ridiculously hyperactive imagination, and then also like my start at Netherworld, just seeing the design quality of their sets and their immersive rooms has always kind of set the bar for like what is possible.
Always being behind the scenes and seeing what it takes and what comes with it. Because I know how you said too, it's like there here in Reno, there are haunted things, like when kind of Halloween and everything comes around, there will be maybe a haunted corn maze or something similar, but it's out in the boonies or wherever it is. And then when I see September come around, the amount of times I say, just counting down for Halloween, it's coming. There are a lot of people that really want to be a part of that because, much like you said, it's the imagination and the spookiness. And everybody that loves Halloween or some sort of horror aspect of it loves it. And so then you knew that, I'm sure in the back of your head, there's a market for this. And then now you've actually kind of found it and broke ground and are getting it started. So tell me a little bit about how the first year was. So it's all three of you together. You got the animatronics, you got the clothing, you've got the creative mindset coming on. What was the first step that you really took to be like, guys, we can make this happen? What was the first step?
Yeah, the first step was the year before Jessica coming out to see Dustin's home haunt and seeing the quality production that he's able to produce. And then Jessica knowing me, she would let me do designs in her store. Some of the silly set pieces you see in Junkie, I installed, and she really believes in my work ethic. So when she saw what we were both capable of and the fact that she had always wanted to do it before, it was really just one sit down in the studio and looking at one another and being like, are you ready to dedicate every moment of the rest of this year to this absolutely overwhelming, ridiculous project? And I mean, we knew we could do it. We are all the hardest workers you could ever meet, but there's just so many aspects that are complete unknowns.
Yeah.
The beginning was, how in the world do we find a location? And I know nothing about that. I had thought about, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I had thought about starting a few businesses, and Jessica had coached me into entrepreneurship and how to think about starting my own businesses before and looking at locations. But just being daunted by, you go and you tour a old CVS or something, what the people want for dollars a square foot. It just seems like, how is this even gonna be possible?
Yeah.
We saw a few locations that we wanted, but just between some locations being gutted buildings that don't have electricity, that the sprinklers aren't working, and being oh my gosh, just the limitations of this building, to going to places that did have some in some strip mall, some building that's just out of business, and how much can we rent this for, and it being holy moly, how much does it take to pull this off? And I mean, dude, the cost was a big issue year one. I mean, if you can imagine the cost of lumber last year, even this year, it's gone down a tiny bit, but it's absolutely insane. The cost of just a single piece of plywood, and we have 500 walls in the show, and those are made of 2 sheets of plywood and a bunch of framing lumber in between, so you do the math. But just finding the location is my biggest memory of the beginning, of just being what are we gonna do? And we were already full steam ahead, so it wasn't gonna stop us. I was already planning blueprints, I was already building walls for a space, but I assumed no matter what space we got, it would most likely be a square, if not a rectangle-shaped room.
Sure.
So I had this blueprint developed, and it wasn't till mid to late summer that we ended up at the National Bowling Stadium. At some point, Jessica, gave the amazing knowledge of just if we don't know what to do, we ask questions and we figure it out.
Yeah.
So we went to city council, we went to the city manager's office, Doug Thornley's guy Lance, my dude Lance. I was I just told him what I wanted to do. I was I know you guys don't know me, new to Reno, but I promise I got the stuff to pull this off. I need a spot. Can you help me find a location in Reno? What I just proving to people in the Reno government, dressing up fancy, doing PowerPoints, trying to prove to people that had positions of power to make decisions in Reno that I have the qualifications to do this. I'm completely committed. I have the Junkie brand name on my side. Let me do something big and awesome. Reno found me the National Bowling Stadium, the building. Mayor Hillary Sheevy at the time, or probably still is, wants to use buildings in Reno that are underutilized. And so she heard about me and became on my side to help this happen. So she cheered me on at our CVA meetings, city council meetings to like, you got this,
Yeah.
like prove that we can do this and we can vote and we can get you a building.
You're
So
dressed
that
nice
was
there with professionals, and
yes,
you're
yes,
like,
I
I'm
know.
dressed
I got out
nicer.
of my art clothes.
I want to scare the shit out of you guys, and it's going to be awesome while you're dressed professionally.
Right, but like, you know, kind of like not highlighting that, but highlighting, you know, the
creativeness,
industry.
yeah.
And like you said when you were talking about marketing a second ago, everyone loves Halloween. And in the last couple years, especially with like Stranger Things becoming so popular, what was it this year? Wednesday Addams.
Yep.
Things like that are like for everyone now. You don't have to be into horror movies or be particularly interested in spooky stuff to end up liking those shows.
Yeah.
And those shows are like feeding mass populations like that little bit of spook, that little bit of horror. And if you watch a show like Stranger Things and you're really into it, like these demographics of like younger adults, you know, being almost obsessed with those shows, like I think gives the thought in the back of the brain, like, oh, I could handle that. Like, let me go see if I could handle like an immersive haunted environment. And I mean, it's theatrical. It's just Halloween entertainment. You know, we're
Fun,
definitely not
immersive,
actually
yeah.
haunted. You know, every time I say I build a haunted house, people are like, oh, like ghosts, like
for real?
paranormal.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, like just like think Disneyland, like you know.
Well, exactly what you said with him coming in with animatronics. That's exactly what popped into my mind, because that's kind of what Disney started with. Is they started with a lot of animatronics, and you think of a spooky Disneyland, who's not going to be into that?
Right.
You see things moving around, and you're like, oh shit, that thing's moving. That's cool. You
Yes.
know? Like,
honestly, Disney, big source of inspiration. I had never been to Disneyland, Disney World. Which one is it in California? And Jessica was like, what? You haven't been to Disney? We have to go. So we were like so deep in building this haunted house. And she's like, nope, we're taking 3 days. We're going to Disneyland. You have to see the Haunted Mansion. If you're about to build an immersive environment this big, like I need you to see like the greats. So went through the Haunted Mansion like 3 times in a row, and just seeing that like quality production of like how they make the environments from all kinds of different technology, from like shadow puppetry, lights moving across an object that cast a shadow on the rooms, to like forcing the viewpoint of the viewer to experience a certain thing at a certain time is huge.
Yeah.
Obviously the quality of their deco in their sets and like the animatronics, oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, really inspirational. We just wanted like our haunted house to be as drippy and as immersive and as interesting to look at as an environment like that. So
yeah, there's a reason too, whenever, because we just came back from Disneyland, there's a reason why it's hour-long waits for everybody to go in the Haunted Mansion in the middle of May, you know, because people still love how immersive it is. You go in there and you're in a completely different environment. You come walking in and you're like, this is spooky. This is awesome. And then there's something inside. Every person, even though people say, oh, I don't like being scared, you're going to see something like that happen. You're like, this is pretty fucking cool. Like, I like seeing those things move
People
around.
say they don't like being scared, but what we all do really like is like a break from reality, like experiencing something so encapsulating, like a moment that just like transports you to another time or place. It's like really good for the soul.
Yeah.
So like for a second, like living in this other world and experiencing these other feelings and just like kind of shocking your nervous system into feeling a different thing, like it's invigorating.
Yeah. And that's so. Now you guys have the game plan going and you find your space at this. Where do you make your next start? Do you say, okay, we're going to focus on animatronics now, we're going to focus on design, we're going to focus on this? Or is it just kind of everybody's taking 50-50-50? We're all going to make sure everything looks a certain kind of way? Or is it we're going to focus on the realism of it? What was kind of your next step from there? Now that you've got a place to go and you know, you're at this big staple now. What's
Yeah.
kind of the next step for you guys?
Yeah. Well, now that we have our footing at the National Bowling Stadium, and I mentioned like planning for a certain shape of a room. When we got there last year, the room we built in is like shaped like a bow tie. So that was a huge like, okay, I just have these puzzle pieces to put together to make this room work for us. But we pulled it off. It was great. But now that we're there, now that we know our building, now that we know our rooms, now that we have a great relationship with the staff there, they're incredible. How we started this year, and I think how we'll always start, is we like to start with storyline. A lot of haunted houses most, maybe half haunted houses don't really have a storyline. They have just different rooms that are different themes, you
It's
know, clown,
concepts,
hospital, what, you know,
yeah.
and that's fine. That's completely entertaining. But as the creatives we are and the amazing creative team that we have, we really love starting with a storyline because that gives us kind of the train tracks forward of everything else. So we have this really incredible storyline this year. I love it so much. We had a huge meeting of our creative minds really early in the year. When I tell people, you know, I'm working on a haunted house in January, they're all, what? But it takes that long to like figure it out. But we have a storyline where, let me tell you a little bit about it because it's so cool. So as patrons of the haunted house, you're going to hear this like propaganda campaign that like there's a traveling freak show squatting in the old abandoned mall. So we're building an abandoned mall. And as patrons of the haunted house, you're going to come knowing that you want to see the freaks that are putting on this show in the old mall. So despite warning signs and the warnings from the fake town that you're going to be living in, you sneak into the mall despite knowing the infection is spread, and the infection was actually like ground zero at the mall. So you go into this this mall that's infected with this plant species to find the freak show because you want to pay to be entertained. And along the way, the freaks entertain you, and you have this journey through this abandoned mall space with all kinds of retail spaces and different fun environments. We're building out a food court scene that's really elaborate right now. Freaking love it. And then we have 2 haunted houses. It's like 2 for the price of 1, but it's one continuing storyline. There is a bit of a like break in the middle where you can use the restroom or decide you're scared and you have to go home if you're a little
it's too much. It's too much.
But, you know, if you're brave enough to continue on after the mall, you hear this warning siren from this town that you're in that it's been so infected that the city that you're in is mandated to go to the hospital for health screenings. And if you've been anywhere around the mall or been in the mall, you're most likely infected. So the next haunted house you go to is a mandated health screening where you're getting put into a hospital because you might be infected. And no doubt you were in the mall, so you're infected.
We know
you become a patient at the hospital. You have to have a journey through the hospital that's dealing with this pandemic that's happening in this city that you're in, and through your navigation through the hospital, you're going to be so infected that they're going to say there's almost no hope for you. But right at the end, when you've almost met your end, there's going to be a scene where you get almost rescued from the hospital. One of the hospital workers is going to be like, I know the secret exit. My friends can help you.
Let's go.
So they help you sneak out the hospital through the trash chute, and you're going to end up in a ritual scene joining a cult of people who don't believe in the infection, and they're in fact are almost worshiping the infection as a savior type character. So this plant that's infected the whole city, that's taking over every scene in the haunted house, at the end almost becomes like this sentient being. The plant becomes this deity figure that the cultists are worshiping, and if you want to join the cult, there's going to be a funny ending to our haunted house. So it's 4 distinct kind of immersive environments: a mall, a freak show, a hospital, and an outdoor environment. This kind of cult like outdoor feeling, spooky ritual scene. But throughout those 4, there is that connecting storyline. So for us as creatives, we love that storyline to depict the choices we're going to make. You're asking like, how do you even start? Do you make animatronics? What is it? So like knowing that storyline, I'm now choosing the color schemes for those areas, making a lookbook for my team, making inspiration, pulling inspiration from pop culture to create these environments. I mean, in building the mall, you could probably guess it. Like I'm pulling a lot of inspiration from the Stranger Things mall scene from, I think that was season 1. And then also with The Last of Us being such an amazing show that theirs was like a slime mold that was kind of taking over the mushrooms. Ours is slightly different. Ours is like a pitcher plant, a kind of species that's taking over. But still, like if those little things are floating around in pop culture that are interesting people right now, like that's going to grab attention, and people are going to be like, oh, I love this. So definitely taking those little like things from.
It gives you that immersiveness of like how people love escape rooms too, because there's a story that comes with it, and then you're a part of that story, but without you having to, what's under under here, you're actually a part of the story, and it's telling you, oh, take this left corner. You see that over there, and it's jumping out and bringing you a part of it, instead of just you having to be the one to figure it all out. In a sense like that.
Yes.
You've got that storytelling.
We're absolutely trying to make the people to the haunted house, the patrons, feel like they're a part of the story, to
Yeah.
really like add that layer of just, immersive, completely encapsulating like storyline. You're not just watching a show from a
You're a
third
part
party
of it.
point of view. You're part of it.
Yeah.
And like you said, escape rooms are becoming so popular. We love escape rooms, especially Keystone escape games. Mark's business here in town, that one's excellent. Go see that one if you want to do an escape room. And then, definitely come to
on
Dark
over.
Corner
Yeah,
during
come on
October.
We'll get you through. You don't have to think as hard. You just gotta
Yeah,
be a part of it.
exactly. Ain't good at puzzles, want a good show?
Yeah, once your brain is all fried from doing that, come down and be a part of it. Relaxed
Yes.
and be a part of that.
Well,
so,
I don't know about relax, but definitely be a part of it.
So then now you've got your storyline, you're ready to go with everything a part of it. So when we were talking before with you then got lines with the library. So when it comes to bringing your actors into things, what do you do with the actors as a sense of like scripts and things like that? Do you do that same thing where you have a few base lines and then you let them improvise? Or do you kind of say, okay, this is your premise, go, 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 be a part of it?
Yes, a little bit of both things you just said. So with a storyline that we're trying to portray, we do have actors, we call them icon characters, who hold down more of the storyline. Those actors will have lines that they're saying to the patrons to push that storyline forward.
Yeah.
And then some actors working in their rooms, it's simply the costuming and the room environment that kind of tells the story.
Okay.
And so you're not going to hear not every actor is going to say a line or a part of a play.
Yeah.
But a haunted house, in a way, is kind of a walk-through play where every room is a separate line of a full storyline of a show.
Right.
And it's a really interesting art form where, we're going to have 50 plus live actors this fall. Having that many people say a line a certain way to you, scare you in maybe a different way. Each person's going to get a slightly different version of this show or this play. So I think that's a really interesting part of the special nature of a haunted house as well. But so we give out character cards. So our staff will be given a character that they will play for most, if not all, of the season.
Right.
We're going to have a majority of our cast be a specific character for the whole season. So by the 13 operating days, they're really feeling that
They're
character.
into the
They're like, I
character. They
am
are
Barnaby,
there.
and they work on it every show, and they they just become that character. It's so fun to watch the process. My story of how I worked up to my character, seeing that in other creatives in Reno, it's just my heart. So we'll give them a character and we'll kind of present the guidelines of that character, who we think that character is, you're a high and mighty character, you have maybe this backstory, or we give them a couple examples of lines they can use. But we also really lean on improv skills. So we hired the guy from Reno Improv at the beginning of our casting calls last year to teach improv acting, kind of a crash course.
Yeah.
And then I have some really talented staff who's just great at acting, who also help coach through the season. But in getting that character, kind of getting the guidelines, learning a bit of improv, and then there's just something about putting on a costume, getting in the coolest prosthetic makeup you've ever seen from my amazing makeup staff, and getting in a room with lighting and a set, and you're just ooh, I am costume goddess. It's just there's something about it when you get in that room. It just it starts to happen, a magic starts happening.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there and you want to be on cast this year, if you're nervous, if you're like, I've never been in a play, I've never acted before, I don't stand up on stage and do improv comedy, that's okay. The little bits of things that we can teach you, and then putting you in these environments, like if you're a creative at all or this sounds interesting to you, you will like grow and learn and like better yourself as a creative and reach the next level of performance if you want to try this out. And there's something for everyone. I mean, not everyone is like in the middle of a room delivering a line. Some people are hiding in the dark corner and they jump out, or they make a noise with a certain sound maker, or they activate a certain animatronic, or they activate a certain air blaster, or they change the lighting in the room. Everyone,
part of it
yes, you can be behind a wall operating a puppet if like being on stage isn't your thing. You can be a part of the show without having to be that character that's delivering lines. So there's something for almost every creative. I mean, from our tech team doing the wiring, deco team, hot gluing the little things on the wall. It like really makes the environment. And then of course the actors bring it all together. But there's an entire back of house staff that is like really making the magic
It comes
happen.
with it too, with the actor's standpoint, with having them be a part of improv, because you're dealing with the general public. So there's one person that's not even looking at the person, just, I need to get away. And then the other one's like, nice try, bitch. Or, like does something and then they have to go, what did you say? And then they have to be a part of it. And then having them so immersed, now they're that character and they can roll with those punches.
Yes.
And I think that's amazing.
Yes, that's a lot of fun dealing with, the attitudes of the public. I mean, if you're an actor in the show, you start to realize people's body movements and mannerisms, and you can learn how to scare people in a certain way. Or like you said, that guy that's like, nice try. There's certain, psychological tactics of talking back to those people in a certain way, delivering a line in a certain way, maybe making the scare more psychological rather than jump scare, loud noise.
What works for one
yes,
doesn't
we
work for
work
another.
with all kinds of levels of like fear tactics. So we love a good challenge, and whatever your attitude might be, even if you're the toughest person out there, just seeing the level of quality of design of the haunted house, seeing it as a viewing it artistically, even if you're not gonna budge an inch, but we'll get you. But
we'll get you.
there's all kinds of ways to appreciate the show that we put on, and how much it takes, and how many people are involved in pulling off this like overwhelmingly immersive environment for 1 month of spooking the community and bringing people out and having a good time at Halloween.
Yeah, because you want to give those people the immersiveness of being there instead of just a cardboard cutout.
Yes, we
You
are
have Jason in the
so
background.
far from cardboard cutout. I mean, just come check it out. I mean, yes, our sets, our deco that we work on all year, everything you see in the show is going to be something that we've created from, like I said earlier, with the plywood, building the walls, painting the walls. Now you have the walls. Now you're putting stuff inside the walls. So you gotta design all of these rooms. Now you're bringing in furniture. You're bringing in set pieces. You're bringing in things for the actors to get behind, stand on. Room design is really huge in a haunted house. You have to set up your room to benefit the actor's performance. If I set the room up in a certain way, now I know that actor has these items to work with. If I give them certain props, if they're playing a character in a kitchen scene and I give them pots and pans, now they can pick those up and bash on them and they live in those rooms. So I try to set the rooms up where there's an environment for the character to become that character because they live in that space and they have those things. And then on top of like the room design is decorating the room then. So that's where all of our props and our body forms that we paint all year come into play. And then the tech team coming in and setting up the lighting for the room. Man, when the lighting happens, that's when it happens. Like you think a room looks good, but then you make it dark, put a little green in the corner like we got here, like that. Like you made this space feel all swaggy with a little lighting and like what you did here.
It
like
adds
it's a
to it.
whole
It makes it
thing.
the
Like it
environment.
really. And then the soundtrack. We had an amazing sound designer from Canada, metal artist Sunshine, do our soundtrack last year completely by hand. I mean, she was in the studio with her partners, like making sounds that became the sounds of the ambiance of the haunt. Because as you can imagine, like it's not always music. Like sometimes music comes into play. Like we have a a mall space that we're emulating. So playing a little bit of music as if that was the music in the mall makes sense. But a lot of the rooms you just need a soundscape.
Just ambiance.
Right. So we had this custom soundtrack last year. My partner is working on the soundtrack for this year. It's amazing. We have this mall space. We're doing this like retro wave, late 80s, early 90s mall. So I think like dun dun dun, welcome to the mall. So we have all these silly commercials that we're making for the rooms in the mall that at first sound really normal, like visit Orange Julius, but then we'll make it like skip on like the price, so it's like smoothie for $6,666, or like the voice of the person on the radio speaker subtle. Like drop down for a second, and you're like, what was that? We just get taken over by other broadcasts. So yeah, the soundscape is really interesting how that makes the environment something else as well. So it is layered and layered and layered with all the things you need to do creatively to make a space feel like a completely other world than you're used to living in.
Yeah, which is just amazing. Like how I said, going from the cardboard cutout to something just immersive that'll bring people in with the subtleties that normal people that aren't a part of the creative space wouldn't even think about. You're like, oh, that little cricket sound just set something off in their head, or that little cockroach scurrying by or something. Hanging out here.
We got one of our hissing cockroaches there in that prop. We have a whole army of hissing cockroaches that are live actors that help us in the show. And on that topic, that's a really fun scare we do. We have live hissing cockroaches that we use in our line acting skits and that we show the people in line. And a lot of people are grossed out by bugs, so that already makes your blood start to crawl. And then in the show, I've given it away, but if you're listening to the podcast, you get the behind the scenes knowledge. We use a projector to project bugs crawling on the ground. So after you see and know it's a live bug, then you like see a projection of a bug, hear the sound of a bug crawling, like it just feels real. Even if you might know it's not, it feels real. And like you said with the little cricket noise, like maybe some people won't like see it or know it or like be like, oh yeah, there's a cricket noise right now. But something about just hearing that, even if you're not like logging it, it creates that environment they might not see or know, but it becomes, and their brains just pick up on it.
Subconsciously.
Yes, there it is. That's the word.
It's all right. So we're going to get you out of here now. Thank you for kind of describing everything that's going on. It sounds like a real event.
Yes.
Like it sounds like it's going to really rival the Haunted Mansion in its own way. So before we do get you out of here, go ahead and promote everything again. Give the websites, give where people can follow the social medias, where anybody can come, and when it does come time for the doors to open, go ahead and let everybody know. Yeah,
absolutely. So once again, we're Dark Corner Haunted House, but we're Dark Corner Haunt on all social media platforms. darkcornerhaunt.com is our website. And we got some really cool things coming up. So we're already we're just starting today to market our casting call event. So about a month from now, it's next month, June 24th and 25th. If you would like to be a part of the show in any way, but especially if you want to be a part of it as an actor, please come out to our hiring event. It's going to be at the Potentialist Workshop on 2nd Street, but this is the flyer you'll see around town. So we're hiring for all parts of the show, and we're starting it early in June so we can have a bunch of meetups to like learn these things like we were talking about earlier, improv, being a part of the team. Like I really promote the haunt family aspect. Like we're a crew, we're a family, we're friends. Our crew is so much fun. We do the silliest stuff. We just went out the other month and did a big video teaser for the ritual theme of our haunted house. You can see that on Instagram and on TikTok. We have a bunch of silly flyers going around town. So renofreaks.com, if you find that flyer, we have a fun campaign going online too. So check out the website for that. Come to the hiring event. We have a few other awesome things going on I'd like to tell you about. On June 10th, We're pairing up with the Reno Punk Rock Flea Market, Lost and Gals over there, to do a fundraising and tomfoolery event. We're doing a clown car wash at Keystone Car Wash in Shanty Dolan's, the bar there on Keystone. So on June 10th, come out and get your car mostly clean by a really entertaining clown crew, and we're going to have some entertainment that day. We're going to have an after party at Shanty Dolan's with some of the punk rockers from the Punk Rock Flea Market. Punk Rock Flea Market's happening. They're doing a circus flea this summer at a brewing company, so check out that crew and come see us there as well. We're going to have a huge installation there with their Midway games, and so we're partnering with them this year for a bunch of fun stuff. And Clown Car Wash, come to the hiring event, casting call on June 24th and 25th at the Potentialist. We would love to have anyone that thinks this is interesting to come, at least meet us, meet the crew, see if you think it's interesting for you. And if it is, join the team and have a lot of fun with us this October. Our tickets for the show go on sale August 15th. So late summer, you can grab yourself a ticket online on our ticketing platform on darkcornerhaunt.com to see the show at the National Bowling Stadium downtown Reno.
That's awesome. Well, Holly, once again, thank you for being here. You guys heard it first. Dark Corner Haunt.
Yep.
You guys heard it here first. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, go if you're an actor that wants to be a part of this, or if you just find it interesting and you like being spooky. I mean, that's kind of the big thing.
If you like having fun, you're going to love it. I mean, even if you think you're scared or maybe it's not for you, being behind the scenes and being part of the show, you'll get as addicted as I was.
Gives you a whole different flavor for it.
It's the stuff, baby. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you talking to me today.
Of course. Thank you for coming. Once again, you guys heard it here first. Remember to like, follow, subscribe us here too at Stephen Longley, Longley's Line Light Style Studio. And we'll talk to you guys next week.